I had come to terms with my feelings towards my mother since I was around 11, but recently I've been questioning if they're valid and reasonable or not. Growing up in an Asian household, the line between abuse and punishment has always been blurred. Even now, I don't dare to label the way I was treated throughout my childhood in fear of being insensitive to those who have actually gone through abuse. As long as I can remember, up until I turned 7, I was disciplined by being hit with a stick by my mother, and she always used the phrase, "I'll give you something to cry about," whenever I started crying from pain. All of this is nothing special, and I'm sure a lot of you have experienced this too. When I was younger, I still had a great relationship with her. I could say I love you and truly mean it, and I would still actively try to make her happy, even though we did fight a lot. Gradually, I started realizing the way she treated me wasn't normal, and I started to resent her. Now, I refuse to ever forgive her for that. There are a lot of reasons why I hate my mother. She thinks children don't deserve any kind of privacy or rights whatsoever. Went through my texts for a long time without me knowing, even being smug and proud about it. Thinks being suicidal is absolutely stupid and is weak. Said she'd be fine if I committed unalived because it would mean she'd be rid of a kid who doesn't even have the will to live. Thinks mental illness are absolute BS. She's discriminatory and trans unfriendly. Thinks people fake being queer for attention. She's borderline narcissistic and a lot more. Growing up, I felt sexualized by her quite a bit, as she always made remarks about my chest size or grabbed my butt. I've always been uncomfortable about any mentions of my chest and would get them surgically removed if I could. I've expressed this to her, but she dismisses it and continues talking about how they're the pride and joy of being a woman. I didn't tell her about my period during the first 6 months of having it, because I didn't want her to make comments of me finally becoming a woman. Until this day, she still thinks I got my period 6 months later than the actual date. I know I'm definitely not cisgender, but again, my mother is trans unfriendly. I've accepted the fact that I hate her, have lost all care for her, and barely even consider her my mother anymore. But recently, I've been doubting if my feelings are valid and warranted. Maybe my mother doesn't deserve all of this, and I'm just an ungrateful kid who is stubborn and refuses to forgive and forget. All of this is because of my boyfriend. I've been dating him for quite some time now, and he's absolutely the sweetest boy ever. He's been nothing but patient and kind to me, and I love him with my entire heart. He comes from a very broken family too, but his demeanor towards them is completely different from mine. His mother treats him like absolute shoot, obviously favoring his sisters over him, and even showing it to her friends. She says stuff like how she found him in the trash, and that he isn't her biological son, he is. She regularly insults him and says she wishes he was never born. He's just a burden. She wouldn't care if he got ended the life of tons of messed up stuff like that. All in all, she's basically not a mother at all and still hits him from time to time. He was basically raised by his grandma, who now sadly has Alzheimer's. His entire family doesn't treat him well, and he's never felt loved by them. His family life is basically a living hell in comparison to mine. And yet he still says he could never bring himself to abandon them. He still says he could never despise them, and that it's all right that he's being treated like that. He'll just deal with it. He's such a huge contrast to the rest of his family. I can only respect him for the way he turned out and how he didn't let his upbringing turn him into one of them, but instead the most patient, caring, kind person I've ever met. He's such a perfect example of someone who will break the cycle of abuse, and I can't help but feel like he's way too forgiving with his mother. It's just unfathomable to me that someone in his situation can just forgive her and move on with no grudge or resentment held. He says things like, maybe she has her reasons, and I know deep down she probably still cares about me, and it's probably just that she doesn't know how to show it. It's just crazy to me that he thinks that that's a good enough excuse for the way she treats him. I want him to have self-respect and see his value, and that he doesn't deserve to be treated that way. No one does. Since he has self-image/esteem issues due to his upbringing. But at the same time, I don't know if I am and don't want to be controlling and just self-impose my mindset onto him. Am I just blinded by my own hatred towards my own mother? Am I just a bad person in general for how unforgiving I am towards her? Is he how I'm supposed to be, or is he just way too nice towards everyone and forgiving? Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Everyone is different. Everyone has a different relationship to their parents. Everyone has a different response to abuse or mistreatment. Everyone has different coping mechanisms. I think your best bet is to move forward in a way that serves you, rather than trying to reframe your experience through the context of how your boyfriend deals with his own experience. I would strongly recommend a therapist or counselor who can help you sort through your feelings about your upbringing in a way that lets you enter adulthood as healthy as possible. Toxic childhoods and families are hard to overcome on your own, as they color every relationship in your life. It's good to get it sorted out before it causes problems for you elsewhere. If not now, I know it can be hard as a teenager to get those services, as soon as you're independent. Comment 2. Your boyfriend is the one with an unhealthy way of relating to his abusers, not you. Your feelings are justified, and none of what you listed is normal or not that bad. It's horrifying. Does your boyfriend require you to interact with his family or tolerate their mistreatment? Would he want the same for future children of his? Does he try to pressure you into being closer to your own aggressor? Think carefully on these things and understand the day might come where his acceptance of their abuse drives a wedge between you. Try to read a free online PDF of Why Does He Do That by Dr. Lundy Bancroft and/or Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents, How to Heal from Distant, Rejecting, or Self-Involved Parents. Education is the start of understanding, which leads to healing. Best of luck to you. Now for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for reading. So, a lot has happened in the past month, and I need to get it all off my chest. It all started when my boyfriend suggested we go on a double date with his friend and his friend's girlfriend. I was hesitant at first, but I agreed because I wanted to make him happy. The night started off well enough. We went to a nice restaurant and had some good food. But then, halfway through the meal, my boyfriend's friend started talking about his family and how he had recently reconciled with his estranged father. This hit a nerve for me, and I couldn't help but feel a pang of jealousy and anger. I tried to keep my emotions in check, but I ended up snapping at my boyfriend when he suggested that maybe I should try to reconcile with my mother too. That night, we had a huge argument. I accused him of not understanding my pain and of being too forgiving towards his own family. He tried to calm me down, but I was too worked up. I ended up saying some really hurtful things like how I thought he was weak for not standing up to his mother. He looked hurt, and I immediately regretted my words, but the damage was done. He left my apartment that night, and we didn't speak for a few days. During those days, I had a lot of time to think. I realized that I had been projecting my own issues onto him, and that I had no right to judge how he dealt with his family. I decided to apologize and try to make things right. When we finally talked, he accepted my apology, but things were different between us. There was a distance that hadn't been there before, and I could tell he was still hurt by what I had said. Around the same time, I made a mistake that changed everything. I decided to confront my mother about my feelings. I thought that maybe if I could get some closure, it would help me move on. I called her and asked if we could meet up. She agreed, and we met at a coffee shop. I was nervous, but I tried to stay calm. I told her how I felt about the way she had treated me growing up and how it had affected me. She listened, but her response was not what I had hoped for. She got defensive and started blaming me for everything. She said that I was too sensitive and that I needed to toughen up. She even accused me of being ungrateful and said that I had no idea what real hardship was. I left the coffee shop feeling worse than ever. I realized that my mother was never going to change and that I needed to accept that. But the confrontation had stirred up a lot of old emotions, and I found myself feeling more resentful than ever. I started to withdraw from my boyfriend, and our relationship suffered as a result. He tried to be there for me, but I pushed him away. I didn't want to burden him with my problems, and I was afraid of hurting him again. One night, I was feeling particularly low, and I ended up drinking too much. I called my boyfriend and left a voicemail, ranting about how I hated my mother, and how I didn't understand how he could be so forgiving towards his own family. I said some really harsh things, and when I woke up the next morning, I immediately regretted it. I tried to call him to apologize, but he didn't answer. When we finally talked, he told me that he needed some space. He said that he loved me, but that he couldn't keep being my emotional punching bag. I was devastated, but I understood where he was coming from. In the weeks that followed, I tried to focus on myself and work through my issues. I started seeing a therapist, and it helped to have someone to talk to. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I had ruined everything. My relationship with my boyfriend was strained, and I felt more alone than ever. I missed him, but I didn't know how to fix things. One day, I was going through some old photos and found a picture of my mother and me from when I was a child. We were both smiling, and for a moment, I felt a pang of longing for the relationship we used to have. But then I remembered all the hurtful things she had said and done, and the longing was replaced by anger. I realized that I needed to let go of my anger if I ever wanted to move on, but I didn't know how. I decided to write my mother a letter. I poured out all my feelings, telling her how much she had hurt me and how I wished things could have been different. I didn't expect a response, but writing the letter helped me to process my emotions. I felt a sense of closure, even if it was only temporary. As for my boyfriend, we're still trying to work things out. It's been tough, and there are days when I wonder if we'll ever get back to the way we were. But I'm trying to be more understanding and less judgmental. I know that I have a lot of work to do on myself, and I'm committed to doing it. I just hope that it's not too late to salvage our relationship. Thanks for reading. Thanks for Aita for breaking up with my girlfriend. Despite her ex-boyfriend's dying wish trigger warnings, unalived, some fairly personal things. For a bit of context, I, 17-year-old male, have recently celebrated our 1-year anniversary since I started dating my girlfriend, who has just turned 18. We met on Snapchat and live halfway across the continent. We managed to meet in real life once. Anyway, things haven't been great for a long time now, for reasons that are far too complex and numerous to individually address in this post. We almost broke up several times now, but someone always either managed to convince the other person to stay, or we both broke down and gave up midway through. Either way, it always ended with us chickening out last second. I lost count how many times this has happened already, however. This time I gathered the courage to be the one initiating the breakup. Of course, though she is acting like she isn't trying to, or maybe she doesn't realize, I don't know. She is indirectly trying to make me stay by saying the usual things like, "I'll miss you. I can't believe it's ending. I thought we'll have kids together. You are the guy who made me believe in marriage." You get the point. I am on the verge of rethinking my decision and really trying once more. Now, to the main thing. Her ex's best friend, both 19-year-old males, has been a good friend to her ever since the breakup and has done an admirable job at improving her mental health, which has always been horrible and still is. But he managed to make her love herself just a little more. For me, being more of an easygoing person who doesn't usually struggle with specific problems she is having, it's a pretty hard task. When she introduced us, we also got along, became friends shortly, and he kind of became the godfather of our relationship, always wanting us to fight through it all and stay together forever. A few months back, he disappeared without a trace. Now my girlfriend revealed that about 3 months ago, the ex called her and told her he is committed unalived. But before he did, he wrote me a letter begging me to always make it work with her. I haven't seen the full letter, currently trying to contact the ex and get access to it. Now I have no idea how to react or what to do. The relationship has been really affecting my health. I'm pretty sure there are just too many red flags to overlook if I really want to spend the rest of my days with this person. There is currently no realistic plan on closing the gap anywhere in sight, and I feel that we'll both be better off apart. At the same time, breaking a dying man's promise, especially a good friend, feels like something I'd regret for the rest of my life. Thank you so much for bothering and making it this far. Every thought shared in the comments is appreciated. Almost forgot, I am writing this at 1 a.m. on 4 hours of sleep. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. You are 17 years old. She is 18 years old. Do you have any idea how young that actually is compared to the rest of your life? Don't start a life being manipulated because that's what she is doing to you. You have so many things to enjoy, and future girlfriends. You haven't seen the letter, and even if he did write that, he wasn't in the relationship, and it isn't breaking a promise to him because you never gave him a promise. One more thing. Use protection every single time you have intimacy with this girl. She may decide to try and get you to stay with her by getting pregnant. Comment 2. With absolute respect, nobody knows what a relationship truly looks like, except the people inside it. No one, no matter how many stories are shared. What happened was sad and unfortunate, but his letter was extraordinarily selfish and short-sighted. His request is not reasonable. Even without red flags, sometimes people just aren't compatible, and there's no way for both people to be happy. Asking you to sacrifice 60 years of your life being unhappy is just not a feasible thing to ask, no matter how you look at it. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for all the comments on my last post. So, a lot has happened in the past week. After I posted, I finally managed to get in touch with my girlfriend's ex. It took a lot of persistence, but I eventually got a hold of him. He was really reluctant to talk at first, but I think he could sense how desperate I was. He confirmed that his friend did indeed write a letter before he died, and he agreed to send me a copy. When I finally got it, I was a mess. The letter was heartfelt and full of emotion, and it was clear that his friend really cared about my girlfriend. He talked about how much she meant to him and how he wanted her to be happy, and he begged me to always be there for her, no matter what. Reading the letter was tough. It made me question everything. I started to feel like maybe I was being selfish for wanting to break up. Maybe I should just suck it up and try to make it work for her sake. But at the same time, I knew that staying in a relationship that was making me miserable wasn't fair to either of us. I was torn. I decided to talk to my girlfriend about it. I told her about the letter and how it made me feel. She was really emotional and started crying. She said she understood how I was feeling, but she also said that she couldn't imagine her life without me. She said that she was willing to do whatever it took to make things work, and she promised that things would get better. It was really hard to hear her say that because I knew how much she was hurting. After that conversation, I felt even more conflicted. I didn't want to hurt her, but I also didn't want to stay in a relationship that was making me unhappy. I decided to take a few days to think things over and try to figure out what I really wanted. During those days, I did a lot of soul searching. I thought about all the good times we had together and all the reasons why I fell in love with her in the first place. I also thought about all the red flags and the ways the relationship was affecting my mental health. It was a really tough decision, but I knew I had to make a choice. In the end, I decided that I needed to break up with her. It was one of the hardest decisions I've ever had to make, but I knew it was the right one. I couldn't keep putting my own happiness on hold for the sake of someone else, no matter how much I cared about them. When I told her, she was devastated. She cried and begged me to reconsider, but I stood firm. I told her that I loved her and that I always would, but that I needed to do what was best for both of us. It was a really emotional conversation, and it broke my heart to see her so upset. But I knew it was the right thing to do. After the breakup, I felt a mix of relief and sadness. I was relieved that I had finally made a decision and that I could start focusing on my own well-being. But I was also sad because I knew that I had hurt someone I cared about deeply. It was a really tough week, and I spent a lot of time reflecting on everything that had happened. One thing that really helped me get through it was talking to my friends and family. They were really supportive and helped me see that I had made the right decision. They reminded me that I needed to take care of myself and that it was okay to put my own happiness first. It was really comforting to have their support. As I was processing everything, I started to think about my girlfriend's ex's friend and the promise he had made me. I realized that while it was important to honor his memory, I couldn't let it dictate my life. I needed to make decisions that were best for me, and I couldn't let guilt or obligation control my actions. It was a tough realization, but it was also freeing. Looking back, I can see that the relationship was never going to work out. There were too many issues and too many red flags, but I'm grateful for the time we had together and for the lessons I learned. It was a difficult experience, but it helped me grow and become a stronger person. Thanks for reading. Aita for selling one of my grandfather's guitars and causing a family meltdown. My grandfather passed away 2 months ago. He collected guitars, over 100, and now Grammy is selling them off or giving them away to family because there are so many. I like guitars. I can't play well, but I've had them since I was little. When I visited, I picked out a couple based on intuition because I didn't have internet and couldn't look up anything. When I got home, naturally, I started Googling the ones I have. I feel like this is normal. It's not about the price specifically, but the quality. I did it for the ones I bought myself. I wasn't really planning on selling them, except for one. That one turned out to be worth more than I thought, so I'm debating on even selling that. It's important to note that my family feels the same. One or two holds sentimental value, but 118? My dad laid it out like this. These are cool to have. You can learn to play or use them for decoration. And if you ever need money, you have something to sell. My boyfriend, however, saw me doing that and said I shouldn't be looking at prices because it doesn't matter, and that I shouldn't sell any of them. He made a comment like this before. I tried to explain my reasoning, but I don't think he understood. But this time, he took it further and said, "Don't look at the prices of anything I give you. Even writing it here, it stings." I can't believe he said that to me. I have never, underscore would underscore never do something like that. He should know already. I've explained to him too many times that I don't care about the price. I just want to feel appreciated. He could give me a card or hell, a handwritten note, which is free by the way, or pick me flowers instead of buying them. Something like that, and I would absolutely love it. Cheap, thoughtful gifts are far better than expensive, meaningless gifts. Also, I'm having trouble seeing how those things are related. He nerds out and Googles all sorts of electronics and video games, underscore, including the price underscore. That's his hobby. I never assigned a monetary value to it. Guitars are my hobby. I told him to sell his $400, used, so initially worth more, laptop, and buy a cheaper one if prices don't matter. And he said, "It's different. A cheap laptop can't do what my laptop can do." Underscore. And underscore. You think a $2,000 guitar is the same as a $200 guitar? Yes, I said that to him. I think he understands a bit more and wanted to make up, but I can't help but feel like he's just upset that I'm upset with him and doesn't want me to be mad. I listen to him talk about electronics all the time. Not just the games themselves, he really gets into the quality and how his computer runs and how the microphone sounds. Now, I don't really want to share that side of underscore my underscore hobby though, because apparently there's no value unless I'm actually playing. I feel like a filthy gold digger for having the audacity to look at the value of my grandfather's now mine guitars, despite having 9 of them and not intending to sell. On the other side, I think there's a cultural difference here, and he's autistic. Apparently he didn't mean it that way and would never think that of me, but it still hurt. Am I being too sensitive? Now for an update, I just need to get this off my chest because I'm really upset right now. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Unless I'm reading your post wrong, he is not confused about how collecting works. He was upset at the idea that you would sell something meaningful, like an inheritance or a gift. You probably don't need to explain to him how guitar collecting works. If you talk again, it should be with the goal of you each trying to understand how you each feel about how to treat sentimental objects. In the end, you will probably need to agree to disagree, because how people approach this sort of thing isn't rational, it's emotional. Comment 2. Yeah, he did make a dumb comment. I think you did explain things well to him, and hopefully he can apologize and understand where he went wrong. You're not being too sensitive. If he doesn't know how to help you not be upset with him, it's okay to explain again and let him know that he needs to listen to you about this stuff and not try to tell you what to think or judge you for what you're doing. Now for the update. Hey everyone, a lot has happened since my last post. So, 2 weeks ago, I decided to sell one of the guitars I got from my grandfather's collection. It was worth more than I initially thought, and I figured it could help cover some unexpected expenses. I listed it online, and within a few days, I had a buyer. The sale went smoothly, and I felt a mix of relief and guilt. I mean, it was my grandfather's guitar, but I also knew he would want me to use it to my advantage if needed. My boyfriend found out about the sale and was not happy. He accused me of being materialistic and not respecting my grandfather's memory. This led to a huge argument. I tried to explain that it wasn't about the money, but about making practical decisions. He just couldn't see my point of view. It felt like he was projecting his own insecurities onto me. He even brought up the old argument about not looking up the prices of things he gives me, which just reopened old wounds. In the middle of all this, my dad called. He had found some old letters my grandfather had written to my grandmother. They were love letters, and they painted a picture of a man deeply in love and passionate about his music. Reading those letters made me realize how much my grandfather's guitars meant to him. It also made me question my decision to sell one of them. I felt like I was betraying his memory, even though I knew he would understand. Then, out of nowhere, my cousin called me. She had heard about the sale and was furious. She accused me of being selfish and not considering the family's feelings. She said that the guitars should stay in the family and that I had no right to sell them. This added another layer of guilt and confusion. I felt like I was being pulled in different directions by everyone around me. To make matters worse, my boyfriend's behavior started to change. He became more distant and less interested in spending time with me. It was like he was punishing me for selling the guitar. I tried to talk to him about it, but he just brushed me off. It felt like our relationship was falling apart, and I didn't know how to fix it. In the midst of all this chaos, I found myself thinking about my grandfather's letters again. They were a reminder of the love and passion he had for his music and his family. I realized that I needed to honor his memory in my own way. I decided to keep the remaining guitars and learn to play them better. It felt like a way to connect with him and keep his spirit alive. But before I could fully commit to this decision, another news dropped. My dad called again, this time with some shocking news. He had found out that my grandfather had a secret bank account with a substantial amount of money in it. Apparently, he had been saving up for years, and no one in the family knew about it. This revelation added another layer of complexity to the situation. It made me wonder if my grandfather had other secrets that we didn't know about. As I tried to process all this information, I couldn't help but think about my boyfriend's reaction. His anger and distance made me question our relationship. I started to wonder if we were truly compatible. His inability to understand my perspective and his harsh judgment made me feel like we were on different wavelengths. It was a painful realization, but it was something I needed to confront. In the end, I decided to take a break from my boyfriend. I needed time to think and figure out what I wanted. It was a difficult decision, but it felt like the right one. I needed to focus on myself and my own healing. I also needed to find a way to honor my grandfather's memory without feeling guilty or conflicted. As I spent more time with my grandfather's guitars, I began to feel a sense of peace. Playing them brought back memories of him and made me feel closer to him. It was a way to keep his legacy alive and honor his love for music. It also helped me realize that I didn't need to sell them to prove anything to anyone. They were a part of my heritage, and I needed to cherish them. Looking back, I can see that this whole experience has been a journey of self-discovery. It has forced me to confront my own insecurities and question my relationships. It has also made me realize the importance of honoring my family's legacy in my own way. I still have a lot to figure out, but I feel like I'm on the right path. Thanks for reading. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.